From our studio in Georgetown, this is the TV Delmarva Channel 14 News at 4.
Hello and thank you for tuning in to TV Delmarva Channel 14 News. Straight ahead, an update to yesterday's tragic shooting death of a Wicomico County Deputy. Charges are filed and a community mourns the loss of one of their own. A new bill being pushed through the Delaware legislature would set the stage for mail-in ballots and challenges from Republicans who are calling it unconstitutional. We speak to one state representative who opposes the bill. And breaking news this afternoon, a grand jury has indicted a Seaford man for the January fatal crash that killed 2 children in Seaford. These stories and more are coming up, but weather first with meteorologist Hunter Outen.
Well, good Tuesday afternoon, Delmarva. We sure had a stormy morning across areas of the Delmarva Peninsula, especially during the late morning hours, with not only damaging winds, heavy rainfall, and even some hail out there across areas of central Delmarva. All thanks to a remnant MCV that traveled all the way from Michigan last night and moved into our area this morning. But we are definitely seeing much calmer conditions out there, to say the least. But earlier, we had some flooding issues in the Milford region with all that heavy rainfall, flooding across Front Street in the downtown areas where they've seen over an inch of rain in a short amount of time. But back over towards just areas outside of our studio here in Georgetown, I took this photo of a shelf cloud on the leading edge of that line of storms, which produced some gusty winds at that time. But the worst of the storms occurred across areas of Dorchester, Wicomico, and Worcester counties, where we had both the wind and even some hail. Thank you to Maggie Lucy of Hebron for sending in this video of the gusty winds and the quarter-size hail in her backyard this morning. And you can see the hail piling up in that mulch as well. Luckily, hail of this size is not destructive, unlike what we saw last month in Dorchester County with the 3-inch diameter hail that damaged many homes in the area. Now let's take a look outside our doors here at TV Delmarva Studios here in Georgetown. We're starting to see the sunshine beginning to return across the area, but we're still looking at some cooler temperatures since those thunderstorms have moved through. Only 68 degrees right now here in Georgetown. Take a look at satellite and radar. You can see that swirl moving just off of the coast of the Delmarva Peninsula. That is the MCV that was responsible for those thunderstorms earlier this morning. Almost looks like a little bit of an area of a low pressure, because that's exactly what an MCV is. I'll have more descriptions on that a little bit later in the newscast with the weather classroom, but we are going to be looking at much nicer conditions once we get into the overnight hours tonight, once those clouds begin to move out. Let's have a look at those conditions elsewhere on Delmarva this afternoon. Definitely the cooler spots right now is across eastern Sussex County and Worcester County. It's where we're still dealing with that cloud cover with temperatures only into the 60s. But further towards the north, we're starting to see the sunshine return, and those temperatures are recovering quite nicely. It's 78 right now in Dover, 76 in Newark, 71 degrees in Salisbury, 76 for Pocomoke City, 73 in Easton, and 75 right now in Centerville. We're still looking at some fairly muggy conditions out there with dew points into the mid and upper 60s, and these will continue to decrease once we get into the overnight hours tonight, once those clear skies begin to move in. Take a look at current sustained winds. Well, the strongest winds are definitely closer towards that MCV from the north at 16 miles per hour sustained in Ocean City, but generally now most locations are seeing sustained winds less than 6 miles per hour. Take a look at the current wind gusts. Definitely the strongest right now is just near Ocean City at 26 miles per hour, 16 for Pocomoke City, 12 for Salisbury, only 9 here in Georgetown, and only 5 miles per hour in Newark. Now we are going to be done with the thunderstorm chances, at least for today, looking at a much warmer day going into Wednesday, but more thunderstorm chances are in the forecast for the rest of this week, and have all the details regarding that here in just a little bit.
An update to the shooting death of Wicomico County Sheriff Deputy Glenn Hilliard, who was shot while trying to apprehend a suspect wanted for several felony warrants in Pittsville, Maryland on Sunday. The suspect, 20-year-old Austin Davidson, was charged with first and second degree murder, first and second degree assault, reckless endangering, and use of a firearm. At a press conference yesterday, Sheriff Mike Lewis expressed outrage that Davidson was not behind bars due to his history of violent crimes, most recently an armed robbery at a Baltimore McDonald's where he received probation before judgment.
Had he been incarcerated where he belonged, if we did not have no bail system here in Maryland, if we had individuals serving true sentences here in Maryland, our deputy would still be alive. We not only have a grieving wife, 3 beautiful grieving children, but we have a law enforcement family that has been ripped apart. Ripped apart. We have not had a sheriff's deputy murdered in the line of duty since December the 8th, 1968, when Wicomico County Sheriff Sam Graham and Deputy Albert Kelly were feloniously slain, both shot to death in a jailbreak here in Wicomico County.
State Attorney Amy Dykes spoke about building the case against the suspect.
It will be presented to the grand jury in the next few weeks, and the trial will be set several months from now. Many people came together last night, and many people will come together in the months ahead to see that justice is done for Deputy Hilliard. We will work with the incredible partners with the Maryland State Police who have worked incredibly hard on this investigation.
Meanwhile, the community continues to mourn the loss of Deputy Hilliard. A candlelight vigil was held at Purdue Stadium last night in Salisbury. A dignified procession was also held yesterday afternoon from Baltimore City and back to Wicomico County. Deputy Hilliard was survived by his wife and 3 children. He would have celebrated his 42nd birthday on June 22nd. And of course, we'll continue to follow this story as updates continue. Well, we're just 3 weeks away from the end of the legislative session in Delaware, and a new bill being pushed through the Delaware legislature would allow for mail-in ballots in the first state during the election. Senate Bill 320 is scheduled before a committee meeting on Wednesday and is backed by several Democrats. Republicans are saying the bill circumvents the standard 2/3 majority vote required for a constitutional amendment, thus it's unconstitutional. We spoke to Milford State Representative Brian Shoup, who opposes the bill.
You know, in my opinion, not only is it disheartening, but it's also an abuse of power, not only circumventing the Delaware Constitution, but also if you read the bill, these election laws that will be changing will be go into effect July 1st. So they will be for the current election cycle, which means that you have a majority that is in power changing the rules in the middle of the game. And, you know, as I've been talking with people on this, you know, even my 5-year-old knows that changing the rules in the middle of the game isn't acceptable.
Shoup says the bill sets a dangerous precedent for the majority party to set voting rules beneficial for themselves.
So this majority, I think, is very short-sighted, seeing that vote by mail will hopefully benefit them as they're struggling in the polls to, you know, gain some traction this November, and they're trying to not lose seats from Republicans. But what they're doing is setting up very destructive policy that will allow for a majority, whether that be Republican or Democrat, to set election laws to benefit themselves, to benefit incumbents, and to change it during the current election cycle. And that's a scary thing.
Now, public comment will be heard on the bill during the committee meeting, which will start at 11:30 a.m. State GOP officials say they're adamantly opposing the bill and plan to sue if signed into law. It would be the second time this year that Republicans have sued to stop newly signed election laws, which includes permanent early voting and permanent absentee voting for violating the state constitution.
We need a groundswell from the public to show these sponsors that the public does not want the potential for majorities setting up their own benefit in current election cycles. And then the second is us going to court to fight it if this happens. And that has been committed through the GOP chair and by our caucus as well.
Well, breaking news this afternoon, a 53-year-old Seaford man has been charged with manslaughter after a crash that killed 2 children back in January. Delaware State Police say Arthur Purdue has been charged with 2 counts of felony manslaughter, vehicular assault, third offense driving under the influence, and other traffic violations in the crash that killed 14-year-old Hope Glasgow and 6-year-old Nathan Glasgow of Seaford. Purdue was indicted by a grand jury yesterday for the charges after an investigation of the crash. Following the indictment, Purdue was contacted by troopers in Delaware City and taken into custody and arraigned without incident. He was committed to Howard R. Young Correctional Institute on $65,203 cash bond. Well, Dover police are investigating a shooting that happened during the early morning hours on Tuesday night. Just after midnight, officers were called to the 500 block of North DuPont Highway after a 19-year-old female and an 18-year-old male reported being shot at. The pair was traveling near the one-stop shop on White Oak Road in a white Kia Optima when shots were fired from an unknown location by an unknown suspect. One round struck the occupant's vehicle in the rear passenger side window and exited through the front windshield. The victims then fled to the parking lot where they called and met police. No injuries were reported by either victim. Anyone with information on the shooting is strongly asked to contact Dover Police at 302-736-7130 or Delaware Crime Stoppers at 800-TIP-3333. Well, coming up, a once-in-a-lifetime flood hits Yellowstone National Park. The incredible video and the reason for the flooding when the news returns. Stay tuned. Well, massive floodwaters ravaged Yellowstone National Park and nearby communities yesterday. All entrances to the park were closed due to the deluge caused by heavy rains combined with melting snowpacks, while park officials ushered tourists out of the most affected areas. Look at this video, my goodness. There were no immediate reports of injuries, but dozens of stranded campers had to be rescued. Numerous roads and bridges were also washed out. Some of the worst damage happened in the northern part of the park in southern Montana, where flooding cuts off roads access to Gardner, Montana, a town of about 900 people just outside of Yellowstone's busy north entrance. Well, we had our own storms here with quite the lightning show with flooding and some hail in areas. Let's get a preview of your pinpoint weather forecast with meteorologist Hunter Outen.
The thunderstorm activity has now moved out of the region, and we should be seeing some sunshine return for the rest of the afternoon hours before a wonderful night is in store. Wednesday will feature much more sunshine, but an increase in those temperatures well into the 80s. But more thunderstorm chances are in the forecast for Thursday and Friday before much cooler and drier weather just in time for the weekend. Now, just how much cooler will it get? I'll let you know when we come back here on TV Delmarva, Channel 14 News. Alrighty, Delmarva, let's get right into the pinpoint forecast for the overnight hours into the day on Wednesday. Now that we are finally done with the thunderstorm activity this afternoon, we're actually looking at a fairly nice night ahead as well, with that continued decreasing clouds, and it will be becoming mostly clear for the most part, with some fairly nice, comfortable temperatures as well, 62 to 65 degrees, with some light winds for the northeast at about 5 miles per hour. Take a look at Futurecast for the rest of the overnight hours into the day on Wednesday. This is 8 o'clock this evening. All the thunderstorm activity is well off of our coast there, and we're starting to see those clearing skies moving in. Temperatures, though, still nice and comfortable in the upper 70s to about 80 degrees just before sunset. And then take a look at the overnight hours, 2 o'clock in the morning. We got plenty of clear skies here on the shore with temperatures falling down into the 60s for the most part. But then waking up tomorrow morning, we got plenty of clear skies waking up, mostly sunny skies. Temperatures already warming up into the lower and mid 70s, but by the time we get into the afternoon hours, we're starting to see a little bit of some cloud cover moving in from the northwest. Temperatures really warming up well into the 80s and maybe even a few 90s here and there in some isolated inland locations. But by the time we get into the evening hours, 8 o'clock right around sunset, we're looking at mostly clear skies. Once again, temperatures holding steady into the mid 70s. But going into the heart of the overnight hours for Thursday morning, we're starting to see more of the way of clouds moving in from the northwest, and our rain chances will be on the increase as well as we get into the day on Thursday. Take a look at the Wednesday forecast overall. We got partly sunny skies, a warmer day ahead as well. Afternoon temperatures of 84 to 88 degrees on average, with some light winds from the northeast between 5 and 10 miles per hour. Take a look at the allergy index for your Wednesday. Although we were fortunate enough today that the allergy index was fairly low, but it will be returning back to medium-high levels for your Wednesday, a 6.2 out of 12 on that scale, and your top allergens are going to be from grasses, walnuts, and oak. Now, let's go switch gears to take a look at the beach forecast on Wednesday, beginning with the Atlantic. Partly sunny skies, 76 degrees, winds from the northeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour, with some small swell of 1 to 3 feet, but definitely make sure you have the sunblock handy because that UV index is quite high at an 11. Take a look at the Delaware Bay. We got partly sunny skies, 76 degrees, winds from the east at 5 to 10 miles per hour, with seas of less than 1 foot expected. And then the Chesapeake Bay, partly sunny skies, 84 degrees, winds from the northeast at about 5 miles per hour, and seas of less than 1 foot expected as well for the Chesapeake Bay region. Now, going into the overnight hours tomorrow night, we're going to be looking at partly cloudy skies with clouds on the increase all the way into Thursday morning, with some fairly comfortable temperatures as well, 64 to 68 degrees. And we got some light winds from the southeast between 5 and 10 miles per hour. Now let's take a look at that extended outlook because we're still not going to be done with the thunderstorm chances this week, although we will get a break tomorrow with plenty of sunshine and temperatures well into the 80s. Partly sunny skies. The thunderstorm chances will return for both Thursday and Friday, with a better chance being on Thursday though, especially during the mid-morning hours, with temperatures only into the lower and mid-80s. But we warm things up quite a bit going into Friday, getting back into the lower 90s out of ahead of a cold front, and it's going to be bringing the humidity along with it too. That's why we had a 30% chance of an isolated thunderstorm. But once that front moves through, we're going to be looking at some beautiful conditions coming in towards this weekend. Temperatures are actually a couple degrees below average in the upper 70s to lower 80s with plenty of sunshine, but it is going to be relatively short-lived because we will be looking at another warm-up trend for the mid-portions of next week.
All right, thank you, Hunter. And coming up next, Nicola Pizza, which has been a mainstay in Rehoboth Beach for 50 years, closes its doors. We have the full story when the news continues. Well, it's an end of an era in Rehoboth Beach. Yes, I can smell the Nicobolis right now. Nicola Pizza, which has been a mainstay at the boardwalk for over 50 years in Rehoboth Beach, closed its doors to dine-in yesterday, only allowing for carry-out at the location now. The original restaurant was slated for construction at its new location on Route 1 this year, but due to some construction issues, they were able to stay open for one more summer at the original location. Nicola Pizza opened for business in 1971 and announced back in 2020 that the restaurant would leave its current location near the boardwalk for a new building, which is under construction on Route 1.
Weather Classroom is sponsored by No Nonsense Office Machines, committed to providing quality products and services with over 15 years of experience here in Sussex County. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, today's weather lesson we will be learning about what are mesoscale convective vortexes, or MCV for short. Now, a mesoscale convective vortex is a low pressure center within an MCS that pulls winds into a circular pattern, or a vortex. With a core only about 30 to 60 miles wide and 1 to 3 miles deep, an MCV is often overlooked in standard weather analysis. But an MCV can take on life of its own, persisting for up to 12 hours after its parent MCS has dissipated, and this orphan MCV will sometimes then become the seeds of the next thunderstorm outbreak down the line. But when an MCV that can move into tropical waters such as the Gulf of Mexico, this can serve as the nucleus for a tropical storm or even a hurricane during hurricane season. It is thought that the development of an MCV begins as the squall line releases latent heat, and this latent heat is released, then warms the air underneath, and the density of that air decreases, causing the pressure at the surface to fall. As the pressure drops, a cyclonic circulation develops that is visible in both radar and satellite imagery, and MCVs usually develop when wind shear is fairly weak, or instability that is very strong, or in squall lines that are either maturing or decaying. Now, MCVs are relatively rare, averaging 3 to 4 per year across the United States and sometimes referred as land hurricanes, although MCVs and hurricanes share some of the same traits, but they develop by different mechanisms. While squall lines typically last for a few hours, an MCV can continue on in the order for several hours to even several days, providing forcing for development of thunderstorms throughout its lifetime, and these spinning features can be identified in satellite imagery long after the parent squall line has dissipated.
All right, let's get one final check of the forecast with Hunter.
Well, at least the good news is the thunderstorms will be out of the picture for the rest of this afternoon and evening, and we got a nice dry day going into Wednesday with temperatures warming up well into the 80s, but those thunderstorm chances will be back for Thursday and Friday, and those temperatures will be soaring back up into the lower 90s with some humidity as well. But once that cold front moves through, a beautiful weekend is in store with temperatures below average, lower humidity, and plenty of sunshine.
All right, thank you, Hunter, and thank you for tuning in to TV Delmarva, Channel 14 News. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook at TV Delmarva and our website, tvdelmarva.com, for real-time news and updates throughout the day. I'm Jonathan Mistrott reporting for TV Delmarva, Channel 14 News. Have yourself a great evening.